Thank you, and welcome back to the Patriots 300 Level Podcast. My name is Eric. I'm joined by my co-host Kevin. Welcome back for our 59th episode this week. We'll be recapping a heartbreaking loss to the Philadelphia Eagles and previewing this upcoming Sunday night football game versus the Miami Dolphins. As a reminder, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Pats 300 Level Pod for up-to-the-minute updates and commentary on news of the day, as well as at our website at pats300levelpod.com. So, Kevin, an encouraging but frustrating game at the same time. Patriots lose a tight game to the Eagles 25-20. Very, I would say, brutal first quarter, maybe first 17 minutes. And then after that, it seemed like they played pretty well. But they just couldn't put everything together. And what were your overall thoughts from the game?
Yeah, I think the biggest thoughts really of the game was just the mistakes and something we've seen kind of a lot often with them now the
Yep.
last I'd say 2 years, where they were in the game, and of
Yep.
course at the beginning they weren't, but the last couple of years we haven't really seen many blowouts where they can't do anything. So it's always been those cases where
Except the Bills games.
except the Bills games, yeah. But other than that, we haven't really seen many where they're not in contention. And it's those little things that they get them where you're saying, oh, if they did one or two more things, they could have won that one. But that's been the
Yep.
case now for a couple of years.
I'd say
Am
I'd
I?
say even back to 2020 when they had Cam Newton. Sure that they weren't as
Mhm.
talented of a team, but
Oh, yeah.
Cam Newton doesn't fumble the ball against the
Hmm.
Bills when he's in the 20. They probably win that. A few other things here and there if he converts on that at the 1 yard line versus
If
Seattle,
he
and
makes
that's
a
it.
cut to the right rather than to the left,
Yep.
and if Cam Newton's not doesn't have COVID for the Chiefs game, if Brian Hoyer doesn't lose his mind, um, all those sorts of things. There's so many.
Damian Harris doesn't fumble on the 1 yard line in 2021
Mhm.
versus Miami.
Ramondre
If
Stevenson, if he gets called forward progress
Yeah,
against the Bengals, there's just so many of those ones where um, there's just it's been happening more and more, and maybe part of it is because again, Mac Jones isn't Tom Brady. You really need to be kind of perfect. You don't have those really like a top five quarterback right now. Maybe he can be, but you don't have those players that can just kind of overcome those challenges. What are you laughing at?
nothing.
All right. So
I
again,
think that
it's
that is a fair point. And
mhm,
one of my friends is a Bills fan, and whenever I the past few years been talking about how the Patriots have had chances and they've been close, he was like,
mhm,
"Welcome to the rest of the NFL, buddy.
mhm,
Like this is what every other team except the Patriots has been dealing with
yeah.
the rest of your lifetime.
Mhm.
It's just with Tom Brady, he's able to overcome it.
Yep.
But
And so that's part of it. And I think one of the things I'm hopeful though for this year is that what you
I'm
laughing
sorry,
at.
I just can't stop laughing at your shirt. I don't know why.
All right. Uh,
Do you want me
anyway,
to?
I'm a little bit more hopeful
Do you want to
this
follow?
year. What? No, we don't have to
Okay.
pause this.
Yeah.
The thing I'm a little bit more hopeful this year is the Bill O'Brien factor, where last year we didn't have that. And although we did have Josh back then, but I think just a little bit more. Mac is not a rookie now, so
Yeah.
like he was 2 years ago. So I am expecting more out of him. And Bill O'Brien, I would say, is at least you would say the Josh McDaniels category. One thing, like I said before, I think watching this game was one thing I did was a little bit more kind of intrigued with, and something I did think might have been the case, where I think Bill O'Brien brings a lot of different things that we haven't seen before for this offense that make it a lot more kind of unique than it's been before. I think it was it was a little stale. It's still really I think Josh is an excellent offense coordinator. I think he did a tremendous job with them. But I think that Bill O'Brien just brings some more things that Josh just wasn't exposed to. And we saw it in the game. We saw a lot of pony formations. We saw the fullback dive by Ezekiel Elliott as being running back. We saw the three tight ends and two wide receivers all split up five wide. The different crossers, they had a high crosser with the low crosser, and just the different route patterns, which was something we just haven't seen as much of, and definitely didn't see last year. So I think while we saw the mistakes and it was heartbreaking, and the fact that if they were maybe more cautious to begin the game, they may have actually won. Where I feel like watching the Eagles and watching The Patriots on offense, the Eagles barely threw the ball at first, just because they were so afraid from the rain. Where the Patriots, they had those passes, and one of it is because they couldn't run the ball, so they really had to throw. But they were a little bit more risky with their throws than the Eagles were. So um, I am intrigued going after this game. I think everyone pretty much is. That
Yeah.
there's a lot of people out there that weren't expecting to see the offense look this good. And we've been saying it now this whole offseason, even last
Yeah.
year, that you put a competent play caller out there, he's going to get much more out of this team than
Yeah.
Matt Patricia ever was. So I think that's the big key out of this.
No, I agree. And I think one thing that you didn't highlight that I think is also another important factor. Granted, it
Mm,
might just be week one and might be less of a factor than it seemed, but
mm,
Adrian Clem at offensive line coach,
yeah.
where as you were saying, the little things that impact the game that having a good coach might overcome. We didn't really see much issues with the offensive line. Sure, they did allow a couple sacks near the end, and they weren't able to run the ball great. But if you're going into that game, granted, we didn't know that it's close range and Michael Owen you weren't going to play.
Mm,
If you were going with two rookies and a guy that didn't practice all training camp as three of your starters on offensive line versus one of the best offensive lines in NFL history, having
mm,
70 sacks last year. Coming away with just two sacks, I think anyone in their right mind would
mm,
take that. There were a couple penalties here and there, but they were really kind of phantom. The Hunter Henry holding
mm.
call, the one on Calvin Anderson was, but
And then the one on Mafi was too.
yeah. But for a couple rookies in those spots, only to have a few penalties here and there, nothing pre-snap.
Mm.
Um, I granted it is just one game, but I wonder how much of that is also good coaching by a very competent, well-respected offensive line coach too.
Mm. Yeah, no, I agree completely. Um, so again, looking at, let's go first really to the offense. We kind of already addressed it so far. I think Mac again wasn't the greatest at first, in the first, whatever you say, 16 minutes or what have you, but he
Yeah,
really kind of lit it up. After that, he had a series of, I think it was 11 or 12 straight completions. He had a lot of zip on the ball when he was throwing into it. The one kind of caveat with him, I would say there were instances, especially towards more in the beginning of the game, but there were some as it went on where he wasn't stepping into his throws enough, and that's when he kind of, we've seen that over the last couple of years too. If he's not stepping into his throw, he's throwing with his back foot. He's kind of lollipopping out there, and that's
yep,
when he could have gotten into trouble a couple of times, but the passes are dropped. So I think that is one thing he needs to work on a little bit more is stepping into throws, because we see when he steps into his throw, he's got enough velocity on there. He really rifles in there. I think the biggest ones are those throws up the seam where he really just puts a lot of oomph into it, and you saw it with the Hunter Henry plays and the Bourne catches. So I think that was one really good thing with him. He had, I think, what, the fifth most on passing yards on offense in the league this
yeah.
week. But I think he's starting to take next step through, and it's just week one. So again, I think it is going to take more time just to really see what he can really do and what his offense could do. But I was um, impressed with what I saw so far.
Yeah, the first quarter was atrocious on all ends,
Hmm.
kind of both sides of the ball too, but especially in offense and especially Mac.
Hmm.
But the thing that impressed me was not only was he able to come back from it and just kind of shake everything off, especially after that pick six and then the Zeke fumble. But I think the last quarter or last three quarters was some of the best quarterbacking he's had as a professional.
Hmm.
He had a great rookie year, but he was making throws that he wasn't making his rookie year or even
Hmm.
last year. With a lot of velocity, he was anticipating hits and was able to still throw it
Hmm.
before the hit got there. I think the one thing there still were a couple here and there that weren't great throws, but overall he looked really good.
Hmm.
And just I think having a full rest of the season with a competent offensive coordinator and Bill O'Brien, getting more and more trust with Kendrick Bourne, Parker when he comes back, Juju, and then the tight
Hmm.
ends and the rookies. I think he can really take that next step that we were hoping he took last year, but we'll have to wait and see. But I was very encouraged with what I
Hmm.
saw. And then even in the fourth quarter, I know they didn't come back, but there were two really great balls in crunch time that he
Hmm.
threw. There was one, I believe it was 3rd and 12, where he threw he was anticipating a hit. A hit was about to
Oh, is it the
come.
Kendrick Bourne one?
Yeah, he got absolutely leveled, but threw a laser to Kendrick Bourne that Kendrick Bourne dropped.
Hmm.
And then the fourth down pass to Booty where he couldn't get his second foot in. It was it is kind of a tough catch for a 6th round rookie to make, even though I think both of us think Booty's better than a 6th round talent.
Hmm.
And Mac might have been able to throw it a little better, but that was a really great throw,
Hmm.
and that most NFL receivers should be able to get, especially
Hmm.
experienced receivers, which Booty isn't. And I think as time goes, he'll get better with those. But even though they didn't come back, we did see some encouragement. But again, it's still discouraging that this is the 3rd year with Mac, 4th year post Tom Brady, and it's the same shit, different day, that they're they're right in it at the end and they just can't find a way to execute.
Hmm. No, agreed. I think the receivers overall, we already talked about the line, and I think just the receivers where Bourne did have a couple of those. He had that one crucial drop where he had, like you said, the 3rd and 12, and I guess that's the worst one was the pick six, but that was a little bit more in Mac, I'd say. But
Yeah,
still,
I
Bourne,
want to I want to put that one on Bourne, and then there was
yeah.
another one where it was on 2nd down or 3rd down too, where he got tackled before the ball got to him and he
Hmm.
dropped it, but there that should have been defensive
Hmm.
pass interference that they didn't call.
Yeah.
But
And then there's a couple times throughout the night. There was, I think it was like 3 or 4 times. He was one of them. I know Douglas was one of them. I think actually Bourne might have been two of them where they clearly ran the wrong route. Where Mac threw it. It was clearly wrong because Mac threw it like 20 yards
yeah,
to the right or left than where they actually were. So I think that's something that I think still needs to get cleaned up a little bit. Douglas doesn't worry me as much just because he's a
yeah,
rookie. Bourne does concern me a little bit with those aspects, just because part of the reason why he's started off slow in 21 and then didn't really have much confidence with the coaching last year was just because he always had a lot of mental mistakes. So I'm just hoping that gets cleaned up more throughout the year. And one here and there is not the end of the world, but you would like to see that really buttoned up. You don't really see that often with like Edelman or Gronk or any
yeah.
of the branch, any of those receivers that the quarterback would trust. Um, anything else on this, or you want to move to defense?
No, nothing much to say. I think the receiver group is better than what some people coming into the year were expecting. I guess
Hmm.
there is one thing is we didn't really see much from Juju, and what we did see was a drop.
Hmm.
And I know it is a little concerning for some people that he was their number one wide receiver that they got in free agency. They let Jacoby go for him
Hmm.
for close to the same salary, depending on how you look at incentives and everything.
Hmm.
But I think part of it is just he was coming back from injury. He is still getting situated with the offense, but also they like to play schemes based on what receivers they think work best against the
Hmm.
opposing defense. And even though Booty was a 6th round pick and he didn't have much production, he did take over more of the Devontae Parker role in the offense. So it's not like he was taking Juju snaps. So I think as the season goes along, Juju will play more and more, and we'll see more production out of him, hopefully. But I wouldn't be concerned with week one with him not getting much production and seeing less than 50% of the snaps.
Yep, no, I agree completely. Defense, I think kind of my biggest kind of reaction out of this is I know the Eagles didn't look great, and we thought there was going to be some rust with them just because they didn't play really any of their starters in preseason. But I think the defense is really kind of left off where it was before, and I think they're going to be a top 5 defense this year. Just the amount of players that they have and the amount of rotating they can do to keep
Yep.
guys fresh. It's kind of crazy just to think about it. And I think the thing I was most excited with watching this game, and he didn't play a ton of snaps. I think it was like 21 snaps. Was Cam White.
Yeah.
He was an absolute animal. In any time that he was on out there, he was forcing pressure. And he's an animal. That's the only way I can really
Yeah.
describe him. I was really excited watching him, and even the Peppers hit. I know both you and me love Peppers because he's got that really big hit action, and he did that against Hurts. And I also don't understand what Hurts was doing in that situation because all you're trying to do is kill clock. Why are you trying to gain an extra yard or two there? But he ended up laying him out for that. So that was something I was excited with. But yeah, I think The pass and run defense was really good. And I'm kind of excited to see how they go forward the rest of the year.
Yeah, the defense really stepped up.
Mhm.
I think the one thing that really impressed me is even though Hurts isn't a Lamar Jackson, he is more
Mhm.
of a mobile passer, and they didn't really let him escape too much,
Mhm.
which is something that has hurt them in previous years. I think part of it was having a faster defense, having faster cornerbacks. Christian Gonzalez played a big role in that, and then also the defensive edges keeping contained, but
Mhm.
also having faster guys maybe doing 4 or 5 safety looks as well has
Mhm.
helped with that. But I think that's something encouraging going forward. I know they don't play the Ravens this year, I don't think, but they do play the Bills, who
Mhm.
have Josh Allen and can do that too. So if they're able to get that under wraps and just force teams to pass, beat them by pass, I think they'll be in a good shot considering how good their defensive backs are. And they were playing without Jack Jones, who is arguably one of the best cornerbacks on this team
Mhm.
when healthy. So if you get him back in full strength, Christian Gonzalez on the other side, you have Jonathan Jones, you have Marcus Jones, Miles Bryant actually played really, really well this
Mhm.
week. All the safeties. Jalen Mills didn't play much, which surprised me, but it also might have just been the matchup this week. But I was really impressed. Like you said, Keon White was everywhere. Being that size and having that much speed and power
Mhm.
was just impressive. And he's just a typical prototypical Bill Belichick kind of football player,
Mhm.
where he's just football is everything.
Yeah.
And I think I don't understand how he fell to the second round and fell all the way to the Patriots. And it's 2 out of the last 3 years that the Patriots were able to get a defensive lineman who was supposed to go in the first round that fell all the way to the second round, with Christian Barmore being the other. And Barmore also had a really, really good game too.
Mhm.
So I'm really impressed with this
Yeah.
defense. So we'll have to wait and see. They have another big test coming up this week against Miami, but I think that I don't know. It's a good offense, Kevin. You can't say that it's not a big test, especially this early in the season.
Well, we'll get to that in a little bit. I think one other thing I forgot to leave out too, and we always include him all the time, so it's people are probably sick of hearing this, but Judon again, he
Yeah.
was all over the place. At least especially the first half of the game, where he was not only good in the passing situations, but he was really good in the running game, which isn't something everyone really thinks about for him. But he was really good about making sure that he didn't kind of lose containment when they were doing those RPOs, and it was actually really effective there.
Yep, agreed.
All right, three up, three down. Do you want me to go with all three first, or do you want to go one by one?
We can eat. You can say your three, and I can say mine, and then we can
Okay.
go
Yeah, I don't
by
think I have
that.
much to describe anyway. So,
Yeah.
Bill O'Brien, I'd say is number one. I think just based off of the difference between last year and this year, I would say, and going to this game, how much better the offense looked compared to any game last year. Next one, Mac Jones. I just think he stepped up. He had a really good second half, and it was really effective, and even the second quarter as well. Defense, like we said, they were awesome there. They limited them to I don't even count the other touchdowns being a real touchdown because that was off of a turnover. So besides the two turnovers for touchdowns, they limited to all field goals, which was really good for one of the top scoring offenses for last year. And then honorary member of that defense is Keon White, just because he's a rookie and he was kind of everywhere, and I really enjoyed to watch that. And I hope that he will take over for Dietrich Wise soon.
So my number one up is Mac Jones. I was very impressed with Mac, especially being able to shake off that first quarter and have a very good game the rest of the way, with three offensive linemen that probably weren't in football shape or experienced to really be starting this week. And then also against one of the best defenses in football to put up those numbers and be able to give the Patriots a shot to win. My second is Keon White. Like you said, he was all over the field. didn't play a ton. I think he only played about 34% of the snaps. But when he was on the field, he made his presence felt. I think he had four pressures, I think. And he had a pressure rate of 21% for dropbacks, which was one of the best in the league this weekend. Number three is Jabril Peppers. He was all over the field. He forced that fumble versus, on Jalen Hurts. Then he also had a really good coverage. I believe it was a deep route to Devonta Smith, and he was able to come across the field to break up the pass where Jonathan Jones was a little beat. He could have had made a play on the ball, but Peppers definitely broke it up, and that's something that we're seeing Peppers get more and more comfortable in this offense. He was a top first
Defense.
round pick or defense. Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
he was a first round pick years ago, and he was young when he came into the league. He's the same age as Kyle Duggar, but it seems like he's still starting to get more and more comfortable and make his presence felt on this defense. And then honorable mention is Christian Gonzalez. Got beat a little bit here and there, but made some really big plays against some of the best wide receivers in football. So your first game of your NFL career, he really stepped up, and I was very impressed with kind of all the rookies, but Keon and Gonzalez especially.
Yep. All right. Three down. I've got Mafi, Booty, and the run blocking. So Mafi, I just think he had a couple. I think, responsible for one of the sacks, and then he had that really big penalty in the fourth quarter. I think it was the fourth quarter, where it ended up pushing them back out of field goal range, where that could have actually ended up being the field goal that could have ended up helping them win the game. Mafi there. Booty is my number two. Just because he had two big plays where he should have ended up having the catch. So there's that play. The first one, he had basically two sideline passes where he couldn't drag both toes, and most NFL receivers should be doing that. We know that if Devontae Parker was healthy and playing instead of him, he would have made those catches. So that's something you have to do if you want to keep getting playing time and making your way as an impact on this offense. I still have a lot of faith in him. I don't know if it's just because of the name and because of what of his kind of lure at LSU and in college of being he's supposed to be a number one pick and really everything around him. But I do have hope for him. And he's still young. It's only one game, but I'm putting him down there. And then run blocking. They could not run the ball at all to save their life. The only effective run they had a couple with Zeke for zone runs, which is actually kind of funny because it's something they could never do last year. And then they had the RPO with Zeke as well, which I do want to see them running a lot more RPOs because it seems like Mac is really comfortable with them. And I think that might be something that they start doing more and more as the season gets on. But those are my three down.
Yep. So my three down, number one is Juju. Might not be his fault entirely, but for being the number one wide receiver on this team, being brought in this season, and just not having much production, having a drop on his first pass attempt or reception attempt, he just didn't make his presence felt. And I don't think it really made too much of an impact on the game because they were able to pick up elsewhere, but we were hoping to get more out of him. Number two, I'm going to go Dietrich Wise, your guy. Two big penalties in the game. There's one where it was 3rd and 16, where he was about a yard and a half over the line of scrimmage, where I was watching it live and I was just yelling at the TV, "You're over the line of scrimmage, back up." And then I don't know how he didn't see that, especially being a captain, being as experienced as he was. And then that ended up I think allowing a first down after that. It made it instead of 3rd and 16 where they got the stop, it was 3rd and 11. Then they converted. Then they were able to get the field goal after that. And then what was the next one? He also had the defensive holding call, which let me see. I wrote it down. I don't remember if that ended up. I don't think that led to points. It might have led to a field goal, but two big penalties for someone that's supposed to be one of your key defensive players. And then number three is Booty. Again, I don't know if I can fully fault him too much. They were tough catches. He is a rookie. He is a 6th-round pick, but for an NFL receiver, you should be making those catches or at least one of them. So I'm still have faith in him. I think that he'll be able to pick it up. But again, those were two big, I guess, incompletions that were intended to him.
What? All right. One, I don't think there's really much to cover here, but Brady halftime, I was there. I wasn't really as kind of impressed with what I thought Robert was gonna do.
Yeah.
Not that I thought he was gonna have a statue on top of the lighthouse, which I did wish for, but I guess the one unique thing that he was really alluding to was that he was waiving the 4 year wait time to be on the hall. So that was kind of cool. And I'm really hoping that they do like a season ticket thing because they said it's gonna be in stadium, so I don't know how they're gonna pick the tickets for that, or so I'm hoping it's gonna be season ticket holders so I can get in. But it did give me kind of some chills, even at the beginning of the game when he rang out that bell, and then even when he ran out and had the speech, and got a little emotional during it. So it was nice to see him back in there. And I was thinking during it after those kind of two touchdowns with the Patriots, and then it was going to be the halftime celebration. I thought that was going to be really a good passing of the torch game from Brady to Mac, and that didn't really see its way through. But we have the rest of the year to really see that. So, any thoughts there? I know you weren't there, but you did watch on the
Yeah,
Patriots.
I was expecting more out of it. It still was really cool to see him, especially him address the fans after the way things ended, him leaving the team,
Mm-hmm.
leaving the Patriots out of retirement speech, yada yada yada. But it was good to hear that. I was expecting at least his jersey retirement. I'm sure that'll be at his Hall
Mm-hmm.
of Fame induction. But I was expecting at least something more than just him addressing the crowd. But I
Yeah.
did really like the lighthouse bell. It's something that the Padres have. They have the mission bell where they ring it before every game, and I think that's a pretty cool thing that they add to Gillette and to the pregame aspect of the games. So that was something I did like about it.
Yeah. And I think the other thing though that Robert did allude to was that it sounds like there's gonna be a lot more stuff done at that Hall of Fame induction. Because he said that there's not much you can do in a 10-minute span
Yeah,
during a halftime. So that did make a little bit of sense. So I'm more excited to see. And then the way that they picked the dates was so the reason why they picked 6/12 for the ceremony was because of six rings and 12 for Tom Brady. So
yep.
interesting way that they picked the dates. All right, quickly moving on. Dolphins preview. Biggest thing coming out of this game, throwback jerseys. So
Best jerseys
uh,
in football, as
yeah,
you can see,
so
and best logo, as you can see
mhm.
to my left. I think I can't tell if it's your right on the screen or left, but
I think I don't know how it shows when I upload this.
yeah,
I think right now it's my right, but I don't know how it looks.
yeah,
So anyway, it's next to the chosen four.
yep.
So again, they're gonna be wearing the throwback reds. I'll be wearing my Mac Jones throwback red
I'll be
jersey
wearing
at
my
the game.
Matthew Judon throwback red jersey.
So excited there. But again, this is one of the first divisional game. Um, Pretty interesting now after last night how this division is going to shape up. I think we can kind of talk about that quickly here and then move on to this. Just Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles, where not laughing at him getting hurt, but just laughing at the whole scenario where the Jets just nothing. And I said this at the beginning of the year, I never trust in them until I actually see it because
Yep.
something always happens,
The
whether it
Jets are the
be
Jets.
the butt fumble or Vinny Testaverde having the same thing happen to him.
Mhm.
It's just kind of really funny how something always happens to them where they'll always lose, and that something always just happens with the Jets. So, funny about that happening, but not funny that he's actually hurt. You never want to see a player get hurt. But with that happening, I think everyone's going to write off the Jets for the whole year. I don't think anyone has any trust in Zach Wilson. The Manning brothers definitely don't have any trust in Zach Wilson after kind of listening to some of their snippets there. So then it comes down to the Dolphins and the Bills, which we were really thinking of anyway. But Bills, Allen had three interceptions and a fumble last night. And then Tua looked actually played better than Josh in week one as well. Both though, I would say you would have to be a little concerned with injuries in the season. Josh Allen isn't getting any younger, and he keeps kind of running into tackles rather than sliding. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. And Tua has the concussion issues to deal with. So this division, I wouldn't say it's up for grabs yet, but it did get a little bit more interesting last night.
Yeah, I would agree. I wasn't expecting much out of the Jets. I actually had them going fourth in the
Mm,
division anyway, even with Aaron Rodgers. Dolphins, I still don't fully believe in. I don't think Mike McDaniel is a good coach. I don't fully buy into Tua yet. And then even though they did have an impressive win versus the Chargers, it was against Brandon Staley, which doesn't really, you can't really get too much out of that.
mhm,
The Bills, even though they didn't look well, Josh Allen didn't look well. Over the last 3 years or so, we've seen this time and time again where they're just have an atrocious week or two and then they get back to normal. Where it
mhm,
was a couple of years ago, they were playing the Jaguars, or one of
mhm,
the worst teams in football, and then they ended up losing to them. And then the next week they came out and just absolutely shit on the Patriots, or the second week
mhm,
after. So you can't take too much out of it. They have a history of this, of just playing, having bad performances and then being
mhm,
able to just shake it off, especially if after that bad performance they're facing the Patriots, which
mhm,
isn't a encouraging thing as a Patriots fan. But I still think the Bills are the team to beat in the division, but I think the Patriots do have a shot. And then even after week one, seeing how well they played against the Eagles, and then how poorly the Bills played this week, but also how the Patriots defense this year seems to be more aligned of being able to stop the Bills than they have in prior years, is also more encouraging too. Will they
mhm,
have the firepower on offense to be able to win a game if it gets into the 30s? Maybe not, but we'll have to see. This defense might be able to stop, not let them get into the 30s. And as we saw
mhm.
last year, it seemed like Bill was starting to get a read of how to stop Allen, where the first game it was better than the previous year, and then the second game really only held him to 3 offensive touchdowns,
Mhm.
or it might have been 2 and 2 field goals actually.
Yep. All right. So moving on, we're talking about the Dolphins now. Dolphins offense. Again, I think the two biggest or three biggest players on their offense: Tua, Hill, and Waddle. I would say. And with that, is Waddle hurt?
Not that I know of.
Why isn't he listed on the depth chart? So anyway, while Eric's looking into that,
You probably cut it off. There's only one wide receiver
oh,
when you screenshotted
oh,
it.
that's why I was gonna say I'm pretty sure Waddle's playing.
Uh,
So yeah, Hill, Waddle, and Tua. So I'd say the two biggest weapons there obviously are Waddle and Hill. Tua still doesn't scare me. Every time we've played the Patriots have played him, I think they limit it to less than 300 yards. So it hasn't been Tua beating them. It's just really the Patriots been beating themselves. Um, and I think the one other caveat there is that the Patriots have pretty much always stopped Tyreek Hill for the most
yeah.
part. I have some of his. You can actually go through it because it was something you thought of looking up for the stats, but it's something we've talked about every year where they pretty much have the kind of playbook on how to stop Hill. You have Jonathan Jones cover him man to man, and you have a safety over the top over him because you have Jonathan Jones, your fastest cornerback, who actually might not even be their fastest cornerback anymore. It might be Marcus Jones. But you have your fastest cornerback on him, and then you have help over the top. And that's something that the Chargers didn't do, where they had him
Yeah.
man to man press coverage. And you never do that with a speed receiver. You never have that and have no one over the top. And then, of course, he's going to burn you. So,
And the thing
uh,
is, they did the exact same thing last year,
mhm,
and Hill burned them last year too with the exact same thing.
mhm,
But Brandon Staley is their coach, so obviously they don't learn from it.
yeah.
But I think that's a good point. And just going into the segment that you started about the last 5 times Patriots have played Tyreek Hill, they haven't let him score or go for more than 100 yards.
Mhm,
So in the AFC Championship in 2018, 2019, limited him to one catch for 42 yards. And then the next 4 games, 6 catches for 62 yards, 4 catches for 64 yards, 8 catches for 94 yards, and then 4 catches for 55 yards. So they,
mhm,
even though some of those games, 94 yards and 8 catches is good, they didn't allow a touchdown in that game. They do have a scheme of how to slow him down and stop him to make other guys beat them. And like I was saying earlier, how I think this defense helps benefit or matches up more with the Bills. I think also having as much speed as they do can help limit the damage that Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle can cause going up
mhm.
against them.
Yep. So I fully expect to see the same situation. We have Jonathan Jones, and then even Marcus Jones. We saw it a little bit this last game because Jonathan Jones was out a little bit during training camp. They did have Marcus Jones split some of the reps with him just to give him some kind of rest. But I would expect to see mostly Jonathan Jones on him and having safety help over the top. And then you have Waddle being covered one-on-one with Christian Gonzalez. So those are the two really things you would want to focus on the most. Tua, I think the biggest thing that he's really good at, and it's something I'm willing to admit, are really those crosser
Yeah.
throws, or in the
Slants and in
RPOs,
cuts.
slants in cuts 10 yards out. He's very accurate with those. He's got very good anticipation with them. Leads the receiver really well. It's just really anything outside of that is where he's not. I don't think he's special.
Yeah.
I think he's average. So
And that has been a way that he has hurt the Patriots in the past, even though he
mhm,
hasn't put up a lot of yards against them. He has gotten some of those first downs where
mhm,
it's a two-step and then slant. But having as much speed as they do on in the defensive back room now, I
mhm.
think that can help limit the production that he has.
Yeah.
But going to the point that you were saying, the Tua has played the Patriots 4 times. He's thrown for 145 yards and no touchdowns his first game, 202 yards and 1 touchdown his second game, which was opening day 2021. Then the last game of the season, 2022, 109 yards and 1 touchdown. And then opening day last year, 270 yards and 1 touchdown,
Mhm,
which 55 of those yards, I think, were the last play of the half where Duggar made a mistake and then Jalen Waddle got a touchdown out of it.
mhm.
So they
Yeah.
pretty much played well against him and
Mhm.
limited his production. But he has been able to get first downs and move the ball a little bit with those quick 3-step drops, slants, and in cuts.
Mhm. Now, kind of moving on, we kind of really talked about how the defense would attack their offense. How should the Patriots offense attack their defense?
Just one more thing about the Miami offense too is
Hmm.
that their offensive line is still a little banged up. I believe Taron Armstead, their left tackle, missed last week. I
Hmm.
think he's supposed to play this week, but if he might not be fully healthy, and even if he does, if he might not play, or if he does, he might not be fully healthy. And then their starting left tackle or starting left guard is Isaiah Wynn, who us as Patriots fans know he isn't really the most productive guy. He might be better inside at guard. He might fit that position better, but that might be something that the Patriots might try and attack with Christian Barmore or Keon White, maybe even Sam Roberts rushing up the middle, especially on passing plays.
Hmm. All right, moving on. For the offense attacking the defense, I think the biggest thing that we saw from last year was Xavier Howard, where the Patriots kept on trying to attack him for some reason and ended up losing. So, how would you kind of attack them if you were Bill O'Brien?
So I think it's part of it's going to depend on the health of the offensive line. If you're still having to go with the two rookies at guard, if you don't still fully think that Calvin Anderson's in football shape, you might want to go with those quick passing game as well. What we saw with when the Dolphins were playing the Chargers, the Chargers pretty much ran at will against the Dolphins, rushing for 234 yards, averaging 6 yards a carry. Eckler ran for 117 on 16 carries. Joshua Kelly ran for 91 on 16 carries. So you might want to try and establish the run first, and then that can open up your passing game, especially if Mondre is more healthy at 100% after the stomach bug. Zeke looked like he still had some juice left in his leg. So you might want to start and establish the run first and then let the passing game go from there, do some play actions. And then with the play actions, again, start with some of the quick passing slants, maybe some screens, and then you can take some deep shots once that happens too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm expecting to see, especially since the Chargers were able to see some production that way. Granted, the Chargers lost, but again, their coach is an idiot. But
All right. Moving on. The where did I have it? Prediction time. So lines, Dolphins are favored by 2.5 points. Over under is at 46.5. I'll go first since I don't see your prediction written down here. I've got Patriots. I think they're going to come out on top of this one. They were close last time. I think they're going to use that as momentum. I still don't think the Dolphins are good, even though they've beaten the Patriots now. How many times? A lot of
Two
times.
is 4-0 against them. I think the Patriots beat them last year, I think, but when Tua was hurt.
Yeah. So anyway, Tua's beating them every single time. So I think that's going to break here because I don't think Tua's that good. I have the Patriots winning 31-17. I think they're going to finally get into the 30s, and I think they're going to hold the Dolphins under 20 points.
Interesting prediction. I'm going 38-20.
Oh,
I think the offense picks up where it left off after the first quarter. I think they're able to convert once they get inside the red zone, which they had some issues this week. They also had some issues pretty much all of the last few years. I think their offense is going to start getting their mojo back. I think Mondre is going to have a big game. I think Kendrick Bourne is going to have another big game too. And I think this defense is going to help slow down Miami. And I think the Patriots win in a pretty easy blowout and puts the rest of the league on notice that the Patriots are back.
hopefully we'll see that. So thank you everyone for listening. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Pat's 300 Level Pod. And then our website, Pat's300levelpod.com, where eventually we'll get another blog up there. We're going to start blogging more. And subscribe, rate, and review. Follow us on YouTube as well. And see you guys next week when we're hopefully recapping a win against the Dolphins and then previewing is it the Jets, I think?
Yes, the Jets.
Previewing the Jets.
And Zach Wilson.
Maybe Zach Wilson. Supposedly the calling of the quarterbacks, but we'll see what that is.
I don't see any other quarterback starting unless Zach gets hurt. But
yeah, there's a rumor about Philip Rivers, but I don't know if that's just
that wasn't from a reliable source. And then also Philip Rivers isn't in football shape, and he's not going to come back unless he's a starter.
Yeah, and he just had another kid too, so he's likely not. He's like
number 10 or 11,
something like that. All right, well, see you guys next time, and thank you for listening once again.